Hey everybody, back again, and I want to do a video today on something that's been going on, well, for a long time, but has kind of hit the news cycle lately and is a little disconcerting. So I had made a video about 2-3 weeks ago on the heightened tensions in Iran and how the United States and Iran seem to be escalating slowly, but kind of getting close to war with the attack on the oil fields and all that stuff. And now it seems, hey, the Middle East is going to be the Middle East. A couple weeks later, and things are very different, a little bit. And now we are seeing trouble in Syria again, between Turkey and the Kurds again, and the United States stuck in the middle again, right? Frustrating. So when word came out, all the news headlines had made it seem, again, being a history teacher, I first admit Middle East is not my wheelhouse. I know a little bit about what goes on there, right? But I'm not an expert, not pretend to be an expert. I'm just some YouTube guy in a tie today. But all the news made it sound like, Trump had pulled out and that vacuum had created this, Turkey was like rushing in. This is what the headlines made it seem like in the stories, the news stories. That for whatever reason, like drop of a hat, Trump was pulling out of Syria, U.S. Special Forces, there's a small amount there. And that, instantly Turkey was kind of rushing in to fill that void. And we were abandoning our allies, the Kurds, who live in like northern Iraq, Syria, the border of Turkey. And they're one of our closest allies, which is true in the Middle East. And we're kind of abandoning them and leaving them to be slaughtered, right? And that's, I know about, that's not good. The Kurds, like any, let me rephrase it. The United States doesn't have a ton of dependable allies in the Middle East, but the Kurds, for a very long time now, have been, ever since the invasion of Iraq and what happened there. We've kind of given them some self-autonomy in the north, and they've been doing a lot of fighting against ISIS for us, but there are tensions between them and Turkey. I mean, Middle East is incredibly complicated, right? It's like take a puzzle, with all the pieces inside, and then take a different puzzle, and then take a third puzzle, and then just like dump all three boxes onto a table, and then try and put those all together in one piece. I mean, it's unwinnable situation, but it's like, this, it doesn't sound good. It doesn't feel good to kind of abandon an ally like that. And that's what the news really made it sound out to be, is that we just kind of let the Kurds to hang out and dry. And Trump was getting a lot of blame for this reckless, out of the blue decision to pull out like that. And so, not cool. And there was a time when a younger failed entrepreneur was, I don't know, how do you even say, more interventionist, right? Back during the second Iraq war, I was in favor of invading. Egg on my face, I know, because I got baited hook, line, and sinker for all the news stories going around about weapons of mass destruction and chemical, potential nuclear programs in Iraq. And in the post 9/11 era, I thought that prudence was invasion would be the right thing to do, because Saddam's SOB, that could be a whole other video, right? And it turns out that probably was not the best decision. Those programs didn't exist. To some extent, Saddam Hussein even thought he had a bigger capability than he really did. And it was a situation of you break it, you buy it. And unfortunately, we kind of we've always been in the Middle East, but reasserted ourselves into the middle of that. And Iraq has been any way you look, a disaster pretty much ever since. My younger brother served in the military, a couple tours in Iraq as well. A couple close, it's a mixed situation, right? Granted, I was not there. I wasn't involved in any way. So I'm just dumb American looking from safety and security back home, right? But I was very much pro, interventionist, like I said. Now, wiser, more experienced, I've learned it's always good to have a little doubt, to double check, look at both sides, and Middle East is always complicated, and doing some research and stuff, I guess it turns out that, and I mean, how can you blame anyone? This stuff isn't reported in the news. You have to go out and look. But the Kurds aren't angels, right? They do a lot of things inside of Turkey as well, because they have some claims on some territory in the bottom. And there had been some bombings in Turkey, and the Kurds were taking responsibility. And so what happens when, like, the friend of your friend is an enemy, or it's a weird situation? So Turkey was getting upset, rightfully so. If anyone was attacking your country and your people, you would want to defend yourselves. It's no different than the United States, actions post 9/11 in Afghanistan, not Iraq. And so Turkey's got a valid claim. They're a member of NATO. Not saying Turkey's a great country, and they've done some shady. There was that big coup attempt last year, and all the. It's just, man, everything's a mess, right? That's just the way it is. And Turkey was threatening to respond after, I guess, some recent attacks to the Kurds down south, and unfortunately, the United States had soldiers in the way, right? So what do? Do we keep those soldiers there and have them stuck in a crossfire, in a war, in a beef that's really not ours? Yes, Kurds are a strong ally of ours, but I mean, Turkey is a member of the NATO alliance, right? And so there's ties a little bit to both sides. You got Syria next door, and the instability there, and the Russians are. It's just such a cluster over there. And so Trump decided he was going to remove U.S. soldiers from harm's way, and as a result, we're seeing the Kurds take a beating right now. They have to do something, so aligning more closely with ties to Syria, which I was under the impression that those two didn't get along very well. I mean, I didn't think they were friendly, but you got to have a friend in the Middle East, right? Russia is coming, because NATO's not their thing, so it would make sense maybe that Russia kind of comes in and gives some assistance. I wouldn't be surprised. United States is made a vacuum, okay, and so you would expect other world powers to kind of come in and take place, because, well, there's a reason everyone's in the Middle East. There's a lot of value to be had there. Value? That's a terrible word. There's a lot of resources there, right? So anyway, getting back to there's always a point. Was Trump right to do this? Tough situation. It's kind of a no-win situation, right? It's unfortunate that the Kurds are in the position they are, and there's a lot of genocide going. How callously can you just love genocide's going? It's not a good situation. But again, if this was 2003 failed entrepreneur, I would very much be saying we need to draw a line in the sand. We need, don't retreat, stand up, protect our right. That's kind of my old mentality, and it seems a lot of people angry with Washington right now kind of have the same idea. We need to keep U.S. soldiers in harm's way because we made a commitment, and even though it may be an unattainable situation, in the past, that's what the United States probably would have done, is kept soldiers there, and it would be a very dangerous situation with a lot of American lives on the line. And I don't like removing the troops and how it kind of settles in your stomach and what that means. But leaving them there probably is not a good situation either. So lesser of two evils. And we'll see how things play out. If this escalates into a larger conflict or remains a little border skirmish. And again, I'm not super involved. I mean, I read an article real quickly before I broadcasted. I like foreign policy and foreign affairs. I try to keep up on this more than most people, but I guess I'm not an expert in any way. But back to the point, is just, man, the Middle East is just such a freaking mess. And really the best thing to do might just be to get out of there completely, right? I mean, Israel's an ally and we should protect them, but, they have friends now with Egypt and Saudi Arabia because they want to be a counter to Iran. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, has the Middle East kind of outlived its usefulness? The United States is an oil exporter now. We are not an importer. We make enough oil for ourselves, pretty much. We don't have as much dependency on the Middle East and those oil supplies, which, you know, why we went into the Iraq War in the 90s in the first place. That's not such a thing. So, again, do we even need to be there and have more American lives be put in harm's way? I don't know. Of course, it could. There's danger. Armchair general, right? You could get a much bigger conflict, more serious conflict. I don't know. Because that happens. In the Middle East, they have their flare-ups all the time. And that's always going to happen. That's what I'm saying. It's such a mess. Like, it's just, the Middle East is going to Middle East. And so maybe it's the best thing to just wash our hands of that and be done. So I don't know. It's not a good situation, but I mean, it's interesting, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully someone can come in and kind of broker a ceasefire or go back to, I don't know, whatever. I don't ever like to see conflict and war like this, but it's just, man, may you live in uninteresting times, right? So anyway, okay. Again, that's one uninformed American's point of view on Middle East politics. And that's it for today. I got some things to do. I know you do too. And I'll be back with another video later. And thanks for watching. Catch you around. Bye.